Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Cinema Relics Live. It is November 5th, which in Back to the Future history, on November 5th, 1955, it's the day Doc Brown invented time travel. And to celebrate that, as well as Back to the Future being back in theaters, 40th anniversary of Back to the Future, I'd like to invite my good friend Rob Klein to join us. He is a expert on Back to the Future, and he's actually the official Back to the Future archivist. Rob, how you doing? You there?
I am there. I'm here. I'm there. November 5th, 1955.
Yes.
It's a great day.
It is. It's a great day in fictional history. Well, thanks for joining us, Rob. We've known each other for a very long time. I want to thank you for coming on. Obviously, we've talked to each other. We've done deals. We've hung out. You've come to Chicago. I've been at your place many times. Was at your wedding, actually, with you and your wife, Jenny. So we've known each other a long time. Thanks for joining us. I would like to talk about Back to the Future eventually, but I'd like to talk about you initially. Rob, you've been collecting for a long time. You've been an expert for a long time. How did you get into the world of props and costumes?
Wow. My grandmother worked at Universal Studios and a show called Battlestar Galactica.
It's a little show that some of us may remember.
Yeah, Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica were two sci-fi shows from the 70s that we all know. And I asked her, I said, hey, Grandma, can you get me one of the Battlestar Galactica guns? I didn't know the word prop in my 7-year-old brain. And she delivered, but she got me the Mattel Battlestar Galactica
the toy,
electronic toy.
Yeah.
And it was a little disappointing because what I was really hoping for was for her to bring home one of these, which of course I later tracked down a couple of them, actually, one of my favorite movie lasers. And I think the very first prop I ever held in my hand was they shot V the Final Battle in my neighborhood, and one of the neighborhood kids ended up with one of these.
Oh, wow, yeah.
This is a Hero V laser, and literally it was like my life changed, and it was never the same. And it was there's a magic to movie props, as many people know.
Yes,
Dan, you know.
Yeah,
and
there's something to
and then
it.
later I felt that one of my things to do in this world was to help save the stuff.
Yeah, well, obviously, you got into it through, when you were a kid, but you've been involved in so many different things connected to props. You were with some licensed replica companies over the years. You've worked for some big names, helping them archive their stuff. You were an archivist, actually, for a number of years for the Disney Archives. You've done a lot
Yes.
in this world. You wrote a book, didn't you? You and your wife, about Back to the
Yes.
Future.
Here it is, Jenny and I, the Back to the Future Almanac. You remove the dust cover. The dust cover is the homage, of course, to the Gray Sports Almanac, which plays a key role in Back to the Future too. So I love this world. I'm very privileged to be a part of it, and getting to hang out with people like yourself has been one of the upsides.
Well, same here, same here. Clearly, you've got a few Back to the Future pieces, and I say few lightly, behind you. Those are all original props, aren't they, and costumes?
Yes, sir. And everything, I always say every prop has its own story to tell if you listen closely. And each and every one of these things has a background and, special story. And I know that you and I often talk about that. That's what we want to continue to do, is tell everybody that's interested how special these items are, what these items are, why that they're important, and why we spend so much time fussing over them and making sure they're here for future generations to learn.
Absolutely. We're very like-minded in that way. So obviously you started collecting, but how did you become an archivist? Like what especially Back to the Future archivist, how did that come about?
Well, I really connected with the Back to the Future film, and right off the bat, I was fascinated. Why was there never the merchandise the way Star Wars had? And there was very few things for Back to the Future. So when Back to the Future items showed up, merchandise stuff, and then later when I started trying to acquire the original props and things, I kind of felt that that was my place to do it because, and this is no shade on Universal, but they did not have an archives department, and so I kind of learned that this stuff really wasn't being kept together. So I kind of took it upon myself to sort of start amassing Back to the Future items, and then later I was very fortunate to know that some of the filmmakers were very excited about what I had put together, which sort of led to Jenny and I writing our book.
Right, right, right. And you've gotten to know Bob Gale very well over the years, haven't you?
Yeah, he's been a great supporter of Jenny and I, and I mean, it's just wonderful. He's just been great. It's just an honor to have been able to work with him and for have him sort of take us under his wing. And we were told by Universal, they said, usually these projects like writing the book aren't as easy, and they said, but the fact that Bob's backing you and is involved, it made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, you were able to
So.
get that thumbs up from the studio without any issues. That's awesome. So
Yeah, when you're working at, I was going to say, when you're working out of Bob Gale's pool house, we knew that we were in good because I was like, what do you think of all this, Bobby? Would you support a book like this? He says, not only am I going to support it, you need to come over and see what I saved, and let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. So that was like, wow, okay, here we go. Let's buckle our seatbelts and
that's
go.
great. That's great. And I forgot to mention one other thing that you worked on connected to Back to the Future. You were actually part of the restoration of the A car for Universal, weren't you?
Yes, which was another honor to be involved with that. We were writing the book at the same time that I was called in to help the guys with the project, and so it was a lot of Back to the Future in my world, which is perfectly fine for me. So,
So I'm just going to ask you a simple question. How many Back to the Future pieces have you handled over the years? And
well,
anything
handled.
that,
I would actually say that I've handled probably 80 to 90% of everything, but that doesn't, but as far as things I actually acquired for my own collection or my own archive, it's probably easier to say, what I haven't had my hands on or haven't
right.
known about. And there are a few things that I've never come across to this day.
What are some of the pieces that have eluded you to, that are out, that may not be out there, may be destroyed, maybe in collections, but you have not found?
Yeah, well, I have to say to everybody, these are sort of closely guarded trade secrets, Dan, as I know you could relate, because the last thing we would want to do is says, I'm looking for this. And even though somebody might show up with something, they sometimes will hold it over your head, as opposed to the other side of the coin where you would be like, I'm going to donate this to your archive or something. Of course,
Right,
that's what
right.
we're always hoping for. But I'll say this now because I don't even know if this survived, but the one piece is the Match Made in Space book that George McFly writes when the timeline is changed at the end.
Right.
I'm pretty convinced now that there was only one of those.
Wow. That's pretty rare, but it does happen from time to time that there's only one example that's used on set, right?
Yeah, the reason that we know is the book cover. I have seen an unused book cover or a production made book cover, but the thing that makes it unique is they actually put an 8x10 black and white glossy of Crispin Glover on the back cover. So it was very like mocked up and handmade.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
Possibly a late addition to being built for the film. Sometimes they bring in
Yeah,
stuff
and
last minute.
Yeah, and Bob Gale has told me some stories about shooting that particular sequence, which I don't necessarily think would be something we would ever publish because it was kind of just talking about some of the complications with that day of shooting.
Right.
But that also it leads me to believe there probably was only one, and hopefully one of the crew members saved it because that's what my hope is versus
Yeah,
it being
yeah.
tossed, which is also possible.
Well, it's clearly an important point in the film, and actually it visually shows how the timeline has changed for Marty and his whole family.
Yeah, and it has wonderful Andy Probert artwork on the front. I have some show and tell that I prepared for you. Here's another Andy Probert piece of art. This is the prop Tales from Space comic book
That's
that
awesome.
they have in the first film. Yeah, so that was a great find.
Yeah,
Very proud to
a
have
very
an
cool
example
piece.
of that.
Very cool piece. So, since it's Back to the Future, Invention Day, 70 years in fictional time and 40 years, and actually since the movie, I'm going to bring out a piece that I'm sure you're very familiar with because I purchased it from you many years ago.
Yes. Yes.
The Mr. Fusion that you acquired through one of your many acquisitions. It's a great piece. I love it, and super happy to take care of it.
Well, I was the reason you ended up with that is because, as you know, you and I have worked together many times over the years, and I know what your collecting goals are. I just felt that that was the perfect Back to the Future piece for your collection, and it's a very special piece. I mean, that screen matches to part 3. I think the last shot that exact Mr. Fusion was used in is the famous shot of the DeLorean hooked up to the horse team going across the desert. And at the time I acquired it, it was still in the shipping box, having been sent back from Arizona.
Right.
So it was
still
with
got Fuller's Earth
one of the
on
prop
it.
people.
There's dirt spots all over it. Yeah, that would have come from set.
Yeah, and I just say this, there, a lot of times, and this is something that we should talk about things like this, but there was a lot of interest in the Back to the Future community. They wanted to mold it. And I said, I'm sorry, but this will never be molded. It will pull off the distressing and the Fuller's Earth. And a lot of times prop people are just concerned about acquiring something for themselves. And I could have actually made some money by allowing it to be molded, but I said it will never be molded. It needs to stay intact. And the fact that you and I see eye to eye with things like that is one of the reasons, why it's perfectly safe with you. Because
thank you.
We have to protect that stuff.
We do. I mean, I actually like the replica community. I think they're an important part of the overall prop community. And
me too. Yeah.
But sometimes to protect the sanctity, I guess you would say, of an original piece, some of that information shouldn't be directly copied. At least the stuff that you're not seeing, like the underneath pieces, which you wouldn't see to camera anyways. Anything that's seen to camera, I think people should be able to replicate. But anything that's hidden, it helps, verify a piece is original. And then, as we know, it's not even so much for the replicators; it's the fraudsters that are out there. That is, we all have to be concerned with. It's a problem in our community, and we have to do whatever we can to stop that. As little as possible, I guess, or as little as we can. I shouldn't say little as possible, as much as possible, but as little as we can. So that's one of the reasons I'm glad you never had this thing molded.
No, it doesn't need, and it didn't need to be either because Bob Gale's, I don't think it's any trade secret, his was molded. There was, and those parts I believe were used. Universal has the Mr. Fusion that the team created, but it was decided that they were going to use restore the time machine back to the plutonium reactor version, and so Mr. Fusion was created for the A-car, but then set aside, and of course that Mr. Fusion is perfect because Bob Gale, who has an original Mr. Fusion in his collection. I'm laughing because we wrote about it in our book. His was made into a lamp by Michael Lantieri at the conclusion of the trilogy's filming. It's great. So yeah.
And honestly, I always get nervous around pieces being modified, but it's for somebody who worked on the film. It's something they wanted to do. They have every right to do that. And then honestly, it'll get displayed and shown off for many, many, many years to come. So that's cool. It's funny when you're talking about the A car being restored. That doesn't always happen. I remember hearing a story from you actually of the flying car that was built for, I think, Back to the Future 2 and 3, how it was at Universal and it was going to go to one of the parks that they were building overseas, and that didn't happen. And ultimately, it was like, oh, maybe we can acquire it because they don't have room for it anymore. They want to get rid of it, and we reached out to them through your help, and they had just put it in a shredder.
Yeah, that's why I remember that era because the intention was to save it, and unfortunately, and I've seen this many, many times, stuff goes straight into the dumpster all the time. And I'm very proud. I've saved a lot of stuff. Certainly, when I was at Disney, I saved a ton of stuff because, fortunately, the VP in charge of the department seemed to think I know what I was talking about. So I was able to tell him, like,
Well, you
"Oh,
did.
don't do that." And yeah, yeah. You know, well, look, I mean, I'm just gonna say, you and I got the carpet bag from Mary Poppins
That's
back for
right.
the Walt
That's
Disney
right.
Company. I don't exactly know if they're saying that it was you and me, but maybe
No,
I don't know.
it
That's
was
that's what happened.
when I did when we wound up. A friend of a mutual friend of ours who doesn't like to be talked, doesn't like his name being brought up, but this gentleman, along with me, bought the carpet bag with the intention of trading it to the Disney Archive because the Disney Archive
Yes.
didn't have cash to buy it themselves, and so we were able to make that work because they were able to trade us material that they didn't feel through identified by you, and this whole deal basically came together because you came up with it because you thought the carpet bag should be in the Disney Archive, which obviously it should be.
Yeah, and I mean I don't trying to take credit. Like, look how cool this that is absolutely true because I was the one that went and said, look, you know, we need this asset and we have a lot of multiples of other assets, and it just makes no sense to keep six of one thing while we have nothing as iconic as Mary Poppins carpet bag, and that went up to the very head of the Disney company without saying any names, and they just said, "Sounds like a good idea to us," and they let us proceed.
It was good for everybody, I think, and I
Yeah.
was able to talk about that in our Mary Poppins episode of Prop Culture.
Yes.
So, if there's anybody who has any questions for Rob before we finish our conversation, we're not ready to do that yet, but before we finish our conversation, if you can send in some messages or some questions for Rob, he's happy to answer to his best ability. One other thing that I wanted to ask you about, Marty's jean jacket. Do you remember what happened to that? Have you ever seen that?
There's one that exists, and the Back to the Future fans that I've gotten to interact with are absolutely wonderful because we all share the passion of what I say is the best trilogy in cinema history. Indiana Jones, Dan, is no longer a trilogy, so we could say that.
That's true. That's a good point. Technically, you're correct, and that's the best kind of correct.
Yeah, exactly. And but you know, it's a Guess jeans jacket, and there's a lot of people that really want to know what the jacket is. There's the big controversy: was the jacket ever released to the public? And that's sort of a still ongoing debate. But from what I understand, I don't think it ever was. I think it was a prototype jacket that was altered for Michael J. Fox, made by Guess, or pieces made by Guess. But there's only one example that has known to survive, and there should be more of them out there. But I would have thought that we would have found more of them by now, and which is not necessarily a good thing for props, because at this point, a lot of stuff is surfaced. Even if it's in one of them is in a private collection from somebody that doesn't want to. You know, it's just private collection, but that doesn't mean that the second or third example shouldn't have showed up by this point, which, like, again, it's not a good, I mean, you know, yeah. So I'm fingers crossed that they at least exist.
Great. So do we have any questions, guys?
That was a question.
So these are the questions. Okay. What about, at what point did your collection become an archive? That's one of the questions from our audience.
Well, the word collector sometimes is frowned upon by people, and I learned early on, the Disney archives, and I sort of took a cue from them and learned, like, well, I'm trying to amass this stuff to give back to the community for projects and for research, and I just sort of thought, like, well, I'm an archivist, and therefore everything that I collect is part of my archive, and I think I've earned my place in that because there's been lots of times where I've gotten contacted by Bob Gale, and they're working on a Back to the Future project. It says, we're looking for information on this, and I said, well, that happens to be right over here. So
Yeah.
you do a scan or whatever it is, and you send it off, and then the next thing you know, it's by saving that artifact, you've been able to provide, you've given back to a Back to the Future product in some way, whereas had it not been for people like you and I and many of our other colleagues, something could have been discarded, and then, there's so many things we could talk about that just don't exist anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, I'm curious. Would you consider one of the other questions, and I think this is a really good one? Would you consider the Eric Stoltz costumes of Marty collectible? Is that something that have you seen any of those costumes? Because obviously he played Marty for a bit of time before they cut him and brought in Michael J. Fox.
yeah, well, that's actually interesting, and this is why, my whole mantra is always full transparency, and I don't know everything, but at the time I was brought into a private costume company who actually did the work for Back to the Future, and they showed me a rack of costumes from Back to the Future, and I was able to immediately go, okay, there's a Michael J. Fox, there's this, there's that, and there were other pieces on the rack that they didn't know what they were, and I didn't either. And now looking back, I'm going, those were Eric Stoltz pieces.
Wow. Wow.
And at the time, I just didn't have the reference. Um, I do have several Eric Stoltz pieces that he used while filming Back to the Future in my archive, but it was getting things like that I was like, oh boy, I think that jacket was on the rack back in the day.
Right. Right. Oh.
Which probably
Hindsight's
means that it
20/20,
could.
Right?
Hindsight's 20/20, and yeah, but we're talking. This was in a day where there wasn't even DVD.
Right.
We spent. I know, Dan, you must have been with me on it. We spent a lot of money on laser discs, so that was like the only thing you could
Absolutely.
use to pause to try to get a clear frame.
And it wasn't even that clear, certainly by today's standards, but it was great compared to VHS.
Oh, it was better than VHS, and
Yeah.
and boy, did we pay the price, because some laser discs were like $100
They were
a
expensive.
piece.
Yeah, yeah.
Boy, it was. But we had to do what we had to do.
Yeah. Well, Rob, I really appreciate you spending time with me today and our audience. I know, assuming you want to, you'll be back on our show. I want to get you on an episode of Cinema Relics Investigates as well. So, Rob, let's talk soon, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dan. And I'll tell you, I'll throw this out there. I would actually like to interview you, because I think that I would love to ask questions, and talk about all the wonderful things that you have done
I'm not
for
that interesting.
the community.
I'm not that interesting.
Well,
We can maybe do it sometime.
That's not true.
That's true. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Thanks,
all right?
Dan.
Thanks, buddy.
Yes,
Bye.
let's do that.
Absolutely. I would love for any of you that have not yet seen our episode of Cinema Relics Investigates of the Mr. Fusion, this one right here, and you can watch it on our YouTube site right now, our YouTube channel. Check it out. We're going to play the trailer for it, and we'll be right back. It is an amazing design. It's the contrast of the black and the white with the strong red. It looks like a real product because it's based on a real product. The entire film problem is energy. How do we power this thing?
Well, I want to know if we can get a home energy reactor in our kitchen.
At the end of Back to the Future, when you see this, is when it's like, yo, this is the best movie I've ever seen.
I feel very confident that it is used in the series. Sure, I'd love this to be one of the Mr. Fusions from the first film. I don't know if I think it is or not. Next piece I want to discuss is a pistol right here. This pistol is from a film that maybe some of you have seen. It's called Jupiter Ascending. It's a Wachowski brother written and Wachowskis, the siblings, right? They wrote it and directed it. It is a visual feast of a film. It is interesting sci-fi, but not necessarily a good film. I think it would probably be better as a novel than actually a movie. That being said, I love the production design in it. This is an example of one of the pieces made for the film. This is a pistol that is from the film. It is used by Channing Tatum. His character name was Cain. It is a hero version of it. I acquired this back in 2016, I think, at one of the prop store auctions. It was sold in a set of two, which he only uses one in the film, so they had different versions. Both of them have electronics. That other piece I have since sold, so if somebody's out there that has one that bought it in recent years from prop store, that would have been mine. What's interesting about this particular gun is it has a light in the barrel. So when you pull the trigger, it engages the light in the barrel. And then if you switch the switch on the side, this side trigger, it has a countdown on the side, a red or a count up, and then this gold circular device spins and keeps spinning until you turn it off. It is really a beautiful piece of prop making and production design. It's just super neat. It's heavy. It's got the gold accents, which makes it look a little foofy, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I dig it a lot. It's not a film that I die to see, and I've only watched it maybe 3 times, but I love that Chicago takes a part of it. I'm a Chicago person myself. The Wachowski siblings, they're from Chicago as well. It's nice to see a little love for our city, and they're the folks that created The Matrix, so you always got to give their stuff at least a read or a watch. I certainly loved Cloud Atlas. The second time I watched it, the first time not so good, but second time I got what they're doing. Oh, stand is a little bit finicky. Let's put that back up like this. And then we'll move on to the next piece. The next piece is a disc from Predator 2. And this is a piece that I'm not certain whether or not is original or not. Predator Badlands is coming out, so we wanted to bring out a Predator piece. Plus, we've got an episode of our Cinema Relics Investigates talking about the Predator Spear, which we have a couple different versions that we show in that episode. This one is the boomerang disc. This is a solid piece that has mostly resin. It has some wire pieces in it. It's missing some pieces off the back. This would be a battery compartment for a hero version. This is not the hero version. It would go like this, and then it has these discs that would get attached in the center. On the hero version, there were lights embedded in plastic sleeves, I would say, or plastic rope here, and then they would project out when you turn the light on, and the hero version would actually open as well. What's interesting, though, is this particular version is not the right color. We had, for our episode with the Spear, we talked to John Rosengrant, who worked at Stan Winston Studios, which is the effects company that built the Predator for both Predator 1 and 2 and the equipment that he wore. And he said that everything for Predator 2 was vacuum metallized. Now, this is not vacuum metallized. So it makes me worry that this is a casting, possibly off of the Hero. Now, the Hero was stolen from Stan Winston Studios. At some time after Predator 2 was made, supposedly they had stolen some Aliens pieces, I heard, as well as some Terminator 2 stuff, but definitely some Predator stuff. And this particular piece, I believe, had a art list, a LA FBI or maybe LA police. What was it?
LAPD stolen art.
LAPD stolen art list, right. So that was where the Hero version that lit up and opened up. We should actually take a look. Are there photos of it there? The Hero? On the list?
Yeah, we do have a photo.
So we should see if that matches up to the cracks on the edges, because that would tell whether or not this was cast from that version. at that point. Check out our Predator episode coming up this weekend. We've got a trailer that we can show you right now, and we'll be back right after that. The Predator is one of the last truly great movie monsters. Completely original, terrifyingly designed, and a testament to the makeup and visual effects teams who brought him to life. And every piece of his arsenal tells a story. Today, we're looking at one of his most fascinating weapons, the retractable combi stick from Predator 2. It's sleek, deadly, and instantly recognizable. But this piece carries its own mystery. Was it part of a long-forgotten prop heist? Or could it be a replica, masquerading as the real deal? We're digging into all the details behind this iconic and potentially lethal piece of sci-fi weaponry to find out the truth. So in this episode, this upcoming episode of Cinema Relics Investigates, we talk to John Rosengrant. We do an interview with him. We see some restoration that was done on the spear, that we do a side-by-side comparison between the Hero version that has the vacuum metallized and the other version that not so sure what that is. And then we also operate the Hero version, which has spring-loaded function into it, and it pops out. It's actually pretty cool to see. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's a good episode. And the last thing we have here now, let's move on to mail time. Do we have any questions, Carson? You want to come over here and we can ask the audience?
Well, the audience will ask you questions.
That's right. Well, tell the audience. That's a very good point.
Yes, we got a lot of good engagement so far. A lot of questions. Someone asked on your thoughts on painting or finishing original production raw casts for display purposes.
I think it's interesting. I've known people that have done that. They've taken production castings and finishing them. I feel like it gets a little questionable because then that piece could potentially be misinterpreted or misrepresented as an original. But I think anybody who owns these castings, unless it's like the last casting of a specific mold, which would be cool to have, go for it, because it's all about displayability. And you know, if a piece is unpainted, it doesn't really look like the original until it's painted. So I think it's cool as long as it's, you know, you're very open about it, what it is when it's sold, if it's sold.
Right, and then kind of going along the same vein, what Rob talked about with someone wanting to mold the Mr. Fusion, what are your thoughts on people molding original props to make more of?
I generally don't like it. You know, I think there's the information about the original piece, which is, I wouldn't say you want to keep secret, but it does make it harder to legitimize the original pieces versus castings. But more importantly, casting pieces a lot of times will damage the original piece and pull off the surface. Even if you use like a platinum silicone like dragon skin, it can be problematic. And a lot of times the wear and tear and the materials on it, the paint and even the dirt that's put on the prop is meant to be there from production. So casting it can remove that. I almost have never done that. There's one case where I did it for a very specific film-related reason, but I don't want to get into that. But I generally don't like that idea.
Okay. Someone asked about your advice for collecting when it comes to humidity for props.
Yeah, high humidity can affect metals and make them rust, and low humidity can dry out foam latex. So I think it depends on, and other materials. Depends on what you have. You know, I generally keep my stuff around 40% humidity, I think it is. You know, don't quote me on that. I'll have to check. But I have a specific thing set up in our studio that monitors the humidity and keeps it within a certain range. Humidity is important. Too low a humidity can dry out foam latex, and too high can cause rust to grow on a piece if it's metal.
What are your thoughts on keeping pieces in a shadow box or an acrylic box?
I think it's a case-by-case basis. Some people like shadow boxes and acrylic cases. They certainly protect pieces better, and they can lock in the atmosphere so that for foam latex that can be very helpful. I know I don't typically use acrylic boxes, but I acquired a piece, a Dragon Slayer piece from the director Matthew Robbins, who directed Dragon Slayer. I acquired the Hero Go Motion puppet that he was gifted after the film. It doesn't have the armature in it, but it is the skin, the screen-used skin. Displayed out, looks beautiful, as if the puppet. It's in a display case, and when you take the case off, the smell that comes out of it, of the foam latex that has, clearly dried out over time, is super strong. So literally is preserving the piece by having the case on it. So it's a good thing. In older foam latex pieces, it's good. Pieces that are in sunlight, you want to make sure you have UV panels and things like that. So I think ultimately it's a case-by-case basis, no pun intended, on what it is and also who's displaying it and what your visual aesthetic is.
Do you collect anything besides props that are maybe prop adjacent, like photos or scripts or call sheets or anything like that?
I have a small collection of original movie art, poster art. I collect some production art for some of the for like Indiana Jones. I'll collect some of the pieces, but not really. I kind of focus in on props, and there's just so much to collect when it comes to props. Props, costumes, set pieces. I even have a vehicle. I've got an Avengers 1 Shield Acura that I used to actually drive around a lot. Now I don't drive it anymore. But it has Shield on the side, and it's got the lights on the top, and it's cool. It was briefly in the film, barely in the film, but it also was in the TV series. But yeah, that's generally just props and costumes and set pieces and things like that.
Cool. And then did you rewatch Back to the Future when it was released in theaters this weekend?
I did not. I had family responsibilities that I could not get out of, so I have not been able to see that or Frankenstein yet, which Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, which I really want to see in the theater.
And then last question I think we have is that a Graflex or an MPP behind you?
That is, I don't think it's a Graflex. So I'm not sure what a MPP is. So that is actually a prop from, what was that? Lemony Snicket. So that is a camera that I acquired from the prop store sale of Lemony Snicket. I bought a lot of period pieces that I thought would be cool to dress my old house with that I no longer have. So that's why we have it here. It's just a cool camera. I collect cameras. I guess that I wouldn't say cameras are prop adjacent, but they certainly are related to the work we do. And I've been a photographer for many years. So an old film camera is cool. And then, the fact that it has a Graflex looking a flash handle is pretty cool too.
Cool. And that's all the questions we got.
All right, great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. We're planning on doing another one next week on Wednesday, and then check out our Predator episode this weekend on Saturday at 7 a.m. Central. It's pretty cool. All right.